Okay, in this video lecture, we're going to be covering different kinds of user input into a Flutter application, and then some uh, different kinds of states, life cycle, the important, some of the important key life cycle states of a stateful widget. And then we will also talk about how to handle those user input and how to build a useful application with it. So in this application, which I will put as a sample linked on the description, you can run the application either at the top of the menu bar here, or click on this run or debug item here, or you can click on these items here. So I'm going to use this one here and click run without debugging. And oops, I'm going to start that again and pick the right, I'm going to pick the simulator, the Android simulator. And then while the app is running within the simulator, I'm going to talk about some of this different kinds of user input that you can do. So when you build an application in Flutter, what's really important is that the application should be able to handle input from the user. And so you would have an application here like this. This is just a little expansion of what the initial app that gets created from Flutter. So if you click on here, this will respond. This is the floating action button. There is also a another button here that reacts, and then here is another type of button. Okay. And then you might have something where you would want users to be able to enter something. So I'll say something like this. Or and then you might want to do some kind of validation. So if this input field was, let's say, the member ID number or something like that, then you might want to put some kind of validation of that values. Okay. And then while, as you saw here, as I was entering the name, you could see that you could see in this debug panel here that the content of what I'm entering is being shown here, right there. And that's how that is happening. You will see in the sample code that I put in here is that there is a text controller tied to that input, that text field. And that text controller has a listener right here. So every time something changes within this text widget, this text field widget, this function gets called and it will display the content within that text. And then that is how you would then be able to handle some input. Um, if you wanted to do some kind of validation, then you typically want to do is you want to set up a form. So here you can see that I have a form. And inside this form, you can see that there are one text form field, a second text form field, and there is a text button here that will do the validation. So here's the little text button for validation. And it is going to look at the values that are inside of here and then print them to the console here. So as you can see that there are actually two different scopes of what's going on in here. Scope meaning inside of this form, there is the button, and the button that is inside of this form function is actually doing the getting to the values of these two different form fields and then doing the validate on them, and then also then printing out the values of them. Um, but if you also see that in here, go back over here, that outside of the form, so at this level of the code really doesn't know too much about what's going on inside of this form. And here is another button, an icon button, which is represented by this little check mark. Um, that when I press this icon button, I would like to see the values of all these various input fields. And so from here, the way that we would get into the various uh, form, text form fields is that when we created this form, we defined um, these keys, these form field keys, and we use them when we created the form down here. So you can see that the first field key is used here, and the second uh, field key is used here. And by doing this, outside of the form, out here, I can get to the values that are inside of these two different text input form fields um, from at this level of the code, and not necessarily having to um, uh, do that kind of processing inside of the form. And that allows you to be able to separate out some logic and maybe possibly reuse some of these widgets in other screens. Okay, so as you can see that there are all these different kinds of user input fields. There's text fields, elevated buttons, um, uh, icon buttons, and so forth, and the form action button. And the user will be able to interact with with these widgets that way. Okay, the next topic that we kind of glossed over very quickly, which is the important life cycle states of a widget. So for these type of stateful widgets, okay, for these type of stateful widgets, anything that's of a stateful widget, these states have some various key important life cycle phases. So the first one is where it gets created. So here you can see that we are creating the state. And you can sort of uh, do some overriding and customization of the state by using this init state. And then you can also tie into see, I don't have it here. No, I don't have it here. But what I can do here is I can do an override on the dispose. So here I can do a dispose on this widget. So there's multiple kind of important kind of states here. There is the creation state, there is the dispose state, and and then we knew that every time that we did the set state, that caused the widget to rebuild. So it would re-execute the build statement over and over, depending on when the state changes. So that's an important thing that you should know about these type of the key important states related to a stateful widget. Okay. So here you can see that the app is running within this Android app. Um, and you can also run this on iOS if you have the MacBook or Xcode installed, or you could also run it on the web, which I'll show you here. We can do it on the web, select Chrome, and then select Run without debugging to do it faster. And you will see it running again within the web browser. Here we go. Okay. Let's put this aside. And there's some important other things that that is covered in this lesson, which is um, that there are gestures that are handled by the widgets. So there are very low level kind of gestures like where the pointer is, whether I'm moving in or out of a widget. But above that, you can handle things at a higher level, not at the mouse cursor level. Things like tap, double tap. So this is at the gesture level. Okay. And the mouse pointers are things that are very useful when you're building like a game, a video game. But if you're not building a video game, that being able to know where the pointer is on the screen may not be all that important. But you might want to just want to know whether the widget got a tap, got a double tap, and then you can do different kind of gestures besides these types of gesture types. If you mouse over this and you either press the command key or the control key, you can see then the definition. So these are all the different kind of gesture events that can be overridden and then handled. So there's all these different types here. Um, so these types of gesture events and like I said, there are different important steps. There are many more other steps besides init, dispose, and build. But the important ones are these three. Okay, that's it.